Video games have always been a big part of my life, and yet I don't actually leave my comfort zone too often. While I didn't play as much as I'd have liked this year for a few different reasons, I wanted to make a video reflecting on everything I did get a chance to actually invest myself into. For the interest of time, these won't be full reviews of the games, just a chance for me to talk about them and what I did or didn't enjoy. And for the interest of content, these will also be ranked from my least favorite to most favorite. The rules. 1. I have to achieve a minimum of 10 hours or have finished the main quest of the game, if there is one, in order to talk about it within the main list. The time threshold is low enough that I'll have some level of understanding for the game, without preventing me from talking about other games that I want to. And the main quest completion gives me an out to talk about certain games that don't have 10 hours worth of content to begin with. 2. The game doesn't have to release this year, so long as I haven't already met the previous requirement in a prior year. 3. This list is allowed to include mods or fan games, such as Project 06, notable DLC expansions, such as Resident Evil 4 Separate Ways, or remakes and remasters such as Super Mario RPG, so long as I believe the contents are substantial enough to warrant discussion. However, none of these specific examples will be featured on this list. And 4. There will be an honorable mentions section at the start of the list, where I'm allowed to talk about any game I played this year, even if it breaks previous rules. And while this isn't a requirement to make the list, every game I talk about in this video will be something I've turned back on within the last month, to reinforce how I feel about it. Also, the script of this video will contain 0 spoilers for any games featured. That said, I can't make the same promise of the gameplay. If that's a concern to you, then I strongly recommend listening to the audio exclusively while jogging, cleaning, or performing any other menial task or activity instead. The time requirements to be included in the main list might get more strict in future years, but I wanted to establish a general precedent with the expectation of this becoming a yearly tradition. The rankings are made on the basis of how much fun I had playing the game, how likely I am to continue playing or replaying the game, and how much of a lasting impact I expect the game to have on me going forward. Now, with all the preamble out of the way, let's get into our honorable mentions. I'd have to talk about Splatoon 3 whether I wanted to or not. After its release in the fall of 2022, I logged in almost every day to check shops, hit the shell-out machine, and do the new salmon rotations for almost an entire year. It wasn't until I missed a few days by accident when editing my SCP video, where I kinda just decided to pull the plug. And since then, there just hasn't been much to pull me back in. The game's very good, and I'm still excited for Side Order next year, but the way post-launch updates have been handled has made it hard to want to actually turn the game back on. I waited over a year for second kits to some of my favorite weapons, and I'm still waiting in Nautilus's case, and those new kits just aren't doing the job of making me want to play more. Granted, the game's had new competition within the last few months, but still, I can only hope DLC ramps back up after Side Order releases, cause 9 new weapon kits every 3 months just ain't doing it, chief. And while it's consistently a ton of fun, Salmon Run doesn't feel rewarding with how much you have to grind to get any of its exclusive rewards. If you've never played the game before, I highly recommend it. It has some issues preventing it from being as perfect as it could be, mostly related to netcode, but it's definitely a full package worth grabbing. Beyond the general multiplayer, it has a platformy single player that functions greatly as a tutorial, the aforementioned PvE Horde mode, which is arguably the best mode in the game, and a turn-based card game that I'm realizing I never sat down to actually learn. Oops. I was hesitantly calling it my favorite game of 2022, and while I'm still not sure if it deserves that title, it's definitely earned it with its longevity. In contrast to this, we have Risk of Rain 2. I haven't played the game a whole lot this year, but it was the first ever upload on this channel, so I feel it deserves some recognition. I wouldn't say the game's gotten stale or anything, but I don't have anything to go back for or work towards. I have mastery in all characters, as well as all skills and items unlocked. And while I have some plans to make a video or two for it once Seekers of the Storm releases, it's kinda just in limbo for now. But it's still a great game, and I encourage anyone interested to check it out. Funny story, my friend actually bought me this game. I say this because I didn't enjoy Risk of Rain 1 when I played it, though granted I didn't give it much of a chance, and I urged him not to waste his money on something I knew I wouldn't enjoy. I couldn't have been more wrong, and it immediately became one of my favorite games. This will be on the test. And for our third and final honorable mention, we have PlayDuh. I wanted to make sure to include at least one listing of a game I first played this year, and just lacked playtime on. So here we go! I played this game for the first time at a holiday party with some friends, and it's a damn good time. The roguelike nature ensures that it doesn't stale easily, and you have a variety of entrees to pick from if that's not enough. Definitely a game worth grabbing if you're looking for something simple and cute to play during your own party. Now onto the actual list, and something has to get placed at the bottom. While I was initially torn between 2 games to place here, time proved to be the ultimate decider. Now, it might be unfair to put a mobile game on the list, but I'd like to leave the door open for other games like Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail, both of which are objectively mobile games, and both of which are games that are extremely popular right now. Now with that said, the reason I feel so burned by Kingdom Hearts Dark Road is because I played Union Cross back in 2022, after the gameplay was removed, mind you. And despite not having any gameplay, it emerged as one of the better games in the series, at least in my opinion. As the 5th best game in the series, to be specific. And while I'm not here to argue that Kingdom Hearts 3 is or isn't a good game, the homage it left for people who played Union Cross is cool as hell. I wanted the ability to be a part of anything the rest of the series might also do. But unfortunately, Dark Road is just a mindless grindfest. Except when I say mindless, I mean uninteractive. The gameplay on screen speaks for itself. I hit the point where I would just leave the auto battle on for hours at a time while doing other things IRL. And after hours of grinding, I'd only be able to play a mission or two before having to grind again. And when most individual missions don't even progress the story, it meant that I couldn't even look forward to the next cutscene to justify the past day's commitment. I never actually finished the game or got around to looking up the cutscenes, but I can't imagine anything in there justifying the experience the game left me with. If I'm wrong, then that's on me, but I just couldn't be bothered to turn the game back on after a point. I didn't hate the gameplay itself, but when such a disproportionate amount of my time is on autoplay, the quality of the game stops mattering. Considering I didn't get into the roguelike genre until relatively recently, I think Dungeons of Aether gets the honor of being the first one I was excited for. You see, even though I don't play it or talk about it often, I'm actually a big Ravels of Aether fan, and I've been one since I first saw Clash Tournament streaming it, prior to even its early access Steam release. And despite not being too enthralled with the mobile game, I was really interested in seeing where this game went. The mechanics with the dice blocks seemed really interesting, and I was searching for cool ideas within the roguelike genre. It was perfect. Except it's not perfect. If I think about the individual components that make up the game, I like it all on paper. Where it falls flat is just how much of a stallfest the actual game becomes. If you can't hit the opponent, just back into defense and get stat buffs for the next turn. Except the opponent can also do this, so you're often just both buffing, waiting for good dice blocks to show up. But you also have stamina points you can use, to temporarily increase stats. This is great, because it gives you something to rely on other than the stallfest. But then, certain enemies or bosses also have stamina points they can allocate, and sometimes this allocation happens immediately in response to yours. And then, once they can't do anything with their allocations, they choose not to spend any. But you still have to spend yours, since they get the final say. Giving enemy stamina also is fine. But they really shouldn't be able to choose not to use it after already investing it. Or you should at least be able to readjust yours afterwards in accordance with what they're no longer using. It just makes the resource feel like something the enemies can use more freely than you can. The characters in this game look cool and have unique abilities, such as Slade's ability to dodge attacks with stamina, while Artemis' increased abilities at lower health. But for as cool as they can be, there's only 4 characters, and none of them were special enough for me to keep playing the game after I beat its campaign. Hell, I actually forgot about the game completely when I was making the initial draft of this list. The final boss fight swapping you between the characters was really nice, and made their individual builds matter, even if only for a turn or two, but the fight itself was over way too soon and its story didn't really leave me with anything. Having to fight the main character, Fleet, as she gets tricked into stealing from every other character was a cool twist, but that's really the only part of the game where I remember being surprised. I played the game at the start of the year, so maybe it's just been too long. Either way, I don't have much else to say, and replaying the game only lowered my opinion. I might as well stop while I'm ahead. Following up on the success of Sonic Movie 2 and the IDW comics, Sonic Frontiers had big shoes to fill if it wanted to break the curse that had fallen over the series. And while I'm not here to say the game was perfect, it's undeniable that it inspired hope within the community. And it's not hard to see, just look at how well it was received. The game was fun, the characters were back to being characters, and most of the game's issues were things that I was able to overlook when I played. Common issues like Poppin' hardly bugged me throughout the game, and I had a great time playing. Sonic was back. And following the success of the game, they announced free DLC to be released over the next year, culminating in an alternate take on the less than stellar ending, labeled The Final Horizon. And if that's not enough to get fans excited, it features the return of Sonic's friends as playable characters in a mainline game for the first time since 2006. What could go wrong? Look, I don't want to be negative over a free expansion to a game I enjoyed, but I just didn't have as much fun with it. Is this the DLC itself being bad, or simply the magic wearing off? I couldn't tell you, but what I can tell you is why it just didn't do it for me. Firstly, the Poppin'. With the increased verticality of the character's traversal options, the Poppin' makes it extremely harder to figure out how to get to your destination in certain areas. Thankfully, Tails can just build a plane and fly to his destination, but Amy and Knuckles don't have the same luxury. And then once gameplay shifts back to Sonic, you agree with more towers you have to climb. Only these towers don't have checkpoints, meaning if you fall down, you have to climb all the way back up, usually from square one. The average tower took me at least 20 minutes each time, and honestly, This wouldn't be nearly as offensive to me if the base game didn't already introduce the perfect checkpoint systems with its towers. And sure, the towers become easier to climb on easy difficulties, but why would I play on easy when difficulty barely changes anything, and when the base game had an exclusive final boss for the hardest difficulty? So we finally finish scaling the towers, and we get these Coco Trials as our rewards, the balance of which is horribly inconsistent. One might take you a minute or two to figure out, while the next is done in seconds. And then you get to the Elder Coco Trial. Oh boy, does this one suck. I'm of the opinion that a supersonic boss fight with 0 ways to replenish rings is an inherently flawed design, but let's look past that for a second. These boss fights are just glorified auto-scrollers, where you watch them do their thing and then parry their attack. The challenge to the boss rush is that you have to actually time the parry. On paper, I love this. I honestly don't even mind how strict the parry is, I can work with that, but the boss's tells for when you're supposed to parry them aren't even good. It gets to the point where you're parrying because you've memorized the animation, rather than out of reaction. And this all comes to a boiling point in Phase 2 of Wyvern, where you have to land 3 successful parries in a row to even land a hit on the damn thing. I'll say it, I gave up. Once I finally managed to beat Wyvern, I saw that the trial wasn't even over, lost what I can only assume was a bug, no recording sorry, believe me I wish I had one, and turned the game off. I looked up the rest of the expansion and told myself I wouldn't touch it again until it got a patch. While I eventually caved, did the boss rush on easy, and then beat the rest of the expansion on hard, I noticed something. Before, I'd been telling non-Sonic fans that I heavily recommend the game if it can drop like 20 or 30 bucks during a sale, and while I haven't gone back on that, I've become less ecstatic about actually recommending it. It's a damn shame, but it is what it is. And honestly, the final boss of the expansion doesn't save it either. I still feel the bosses in this game are all spectacle with 0 substance, and I have the nuclear take that the true final boss of base game is the best boss fight in the game. I hear the boos, I get it, but at least that boss makes me feel something on repeat fights, even more so upon victory. Every other boss in the game just has me feeling like I'm finally free to go do other things again. And yes, 9S is my favorite character to play as a Nier Automata. How'd you know? Don't let me be the one to tell you the expansion or the game itself are bad. That's absolutely not my intent. I still have a lot of faith in the future of the series, but I can't lie about how I feel. And for clarity, this is from someone that loves Sonic. Also, to say something good about the expansion real quick, the final boss is a special mechanic where getting hit drains your max rings instead of dealing direct damage to you. I love this, and I think it's such a good answer to the earlier issue I posed. Why limit the time of the transformation by preventing the player from gaining rings, when you can limit the amount of rings they can hold at a time instead? Mwah! I think this is the first game on here where I'm gonna start to make some people mad. Hit the music! I remember seeing all the excitement for this game back when it was announced. People wanted a new Jet Set Radio, and this felt like it was gonna scratch that itch. And I, having been wanting to try Jet Set for a while now, was interested in seeing what I was missing out on. And man, I just don't think this game's for me. The skating around was cool, and I enjoyed doing the challenges where you have to hit every roller post in a single combo, but beyond that, it just felt kinda sandboxy. And that's fine, but I don't like being left to my own devices for too long. Even just having a checklist of what you're still missing in each area would go a long way. So I follow the main quest, nothing challenging or interesting really happens. The fights aren't super engaging since you have 3 attacks for the entire game, the crew battles feel fruitless because of how easy it is to get a high multiplier, and everything else just feels like padding. The best part of the game by far are the mental segments, where you're skating around the mind of your player character. On the surface, they're just straight shots at the end, but by removing your character from reality, the devs were able to get a lot more creative with the level layout, and the game has made all the better for it. I didn't really find the story to be anything special, but it's not the kind of game where it needs to be either. The main thing that dropped this game some spots was something that's technically my fault, but the game shouldn't have allowed this to be possible. You see, when playing the game on PC, if you Alt-Tab while launching the game, you can still control the menu. This actually led me to opening my save file prematurely a few times while setting up stream. But thankfully, that's all it ever was. What I eventually found out is how easy it is to delete your save file, and thankfully that didn't happen to me until after I finished the game. It sounds crazy to say, but all it takes is space D and then space 2 more times and your save data is gone. I dodged a bullet for real. This means I never got the chance to explore some of the areas beyond what you were able to on your first visit, but I can't imagine that changes my opinion too much. If you plan on playing this game, it's easy to avoid once you know about it, but I want to caution people anyway. If me putting this here can prevent even one person from accidentally deleting their save, then that's good enough for me. Following this, we now have Close to Golf. This game's very cute for what it is, a golf game with roguelike elements. Only when I say golf, it's more like having to escape from a maze by hitting a golf ball towards the hole. You have a stroke limit, and you lose if you ever run out of strokes, but you also have power-ups you can use to increase the value of shots, attempt shots multiple times, or increase the remaining number of shots. I haven't beaten the game yet, and I don't feel comfortable saying that I plan to go back to it enough to beat it, but I have a good time when I do. In fact, recording for the video was pleasantly surprising. I had forgotten how simple and fun the game actually is. And at $20, I recommend it for anyone that's a fan of roguelikes and looking for a time killer with replayability. I think where the game falls off for me is the boss fights. Every 4 or 5 holes, you fight a boss. The gimmick of the boss fights are longer holes that you have to beat the boss to, on top of the normal challenge of not running out of strokes. The bosses don't play by the same rules though. They get to skip certain sections of holes. And while I'm fine with that upon retrospection, it gets really irritating in the moment. I found that I would just save up all my power-ups for the boss fights, save the situations where I needed them, because they were far more useful there. And I just can't help that this results in the game feeling less dynamic. The power-ups are the main thing that makes the game stand out to me, and it's kinda sad to not be able to use them because the boss fights don't feel reasonably beatable without them. I was only able to beat the first boss because I had a few practice shot pluses, but then I don't think I found any since. Oh well, at least you don't have to fight the bosses again after you've already beaten them once. I had a good time with the game, I just don't feel like I can put it much higher in good faith. With no way for Sonic Team to follow up on 2022's successful Blue Blur, 2023 decided to grant all our wishes and murder him instead. And for a shadow-dropped April Fool's game, the murder of Sonic the Hedgehog is pretty damn good. Sonic died, and this time there's no humans in sight to play spin the bottle, so it's up to you and his friends to at least avenge his death. And the biggest praise I can give this game is that the characters are actually characters. For the first time since I think Sonic 06, the extended cast of characters get to actually be characters in a Sonic game. Note, I say extended cast to exclude the Origins trio that were also present in Frontiers and Unleashed. But while the comics have existed to give characters love where the games couldn't, there's one character that even they couldn't manage to get correctly, whether it be mandates or whatever else, and I'm pleased to announce that the Ultimate Life form is finally enjoyable again. I actually never minded what he's been the past decade, but you can't deny he's not the same character he used to be. And while I'm not knowledgeable enough to say he's fully back on track, he's at least more than a brooding edgelord with a soul darker than the coffee he drinks. Hell, he cares enough about the rest of the cast of this game that he actively tries to keep Amy away so he can secretly buy tickets for her favorite band, penning himself as the red herring culprit in the process. And the other characters get plenty of love as well. My new favorite bit of character lore is that Espio borrowed a book Knuckles was reading, speed-read the entire book, and then spoiled him on the ending. That's diabolical. Too bad Blaze shot me down, turning this into the worst game I ever had the displeasure of playing. But jokes aside, the only real gripe I have here comes in the endgame, and nothing to do with its plot or twist antagonist reveal, all of that's fine. The game just feels like it's setting up to go on longer than it ultimately does. I got all excited thinking there was going to be more game to play and more mystery to solve, this time with Sonic helping me instead of me helping Tails. But silly me, we're just going to play the minigame on loop for the next 5-10 minutes while we save everyone and defeat the secret antagonist. I can't be too mad because it's just a novelty-free game, but I'd have happily paid like $5 for the actual second act that I sincerely thought the game was setting up for. If not that, then I think ending the game with the quote-unquote boss fight right after unmasking the culprit would have worked just as well. But on replay, it didn't bug me nearly as much as it did the first time, so oh well, c'est la vie. I got a free game with loads of charm and character writing for some of Sonic's extended cast. It's hard to ask for anything more. This feels like all I've wanted for a while. A nice surprise of 2021 was the release of a port for my favorite mainline Mario game, Super Mario 3D World, but this port also released alongside a surprise sandbox called Bowser's Fury. In terms of scale, this new world is fairly small, but as a way to test out some ideas, I enjoyed it quite a bit. The big calling card of this expansion is Bowser himself. Every few minutes, Bowser will wake up and start raining fireballs on you. They're not super difficult to avoid, but the atmosphere and stakes of it's mesmerizing. But where this part of the gameplay loop really takes off is when you start to find the Bowser blocks hidden on each island. Get Bowser to destroy one of them with fireballs, and you're rewarded with a free shine. Grab a shine of the cat bell I'll talk about in a minute, or just wait long enough and Bowser will eventually despawn, allowing you to more freely explore. After you have a set amount of shines, you gain access to the giant cat bells in the center of each area. Grab one of these during Bowser's tantrums to grow to his size and take the fight to him. Initially, I didn't like these fights, but after experimenting more and especially on replay, they've grown on me. They're not anything special, but they're not invasive either. My favorite part is the miniature scale of the playable area beneath you, really selling how big you've become. You're literally participating in a kaiju battle. Anyway, that's the game flow until you get enough shines to begin the final encounter. After beating the game, you gain access to a few more shines around the world, but that's pretty much it. A short and sweet expansion alongside the port of a great game. The Fury Timer was something I enjoyed a lot when I played the game, as it constantly kept me on my toes, but I can see why others might not like it. especially for speedrunning, where you have to go out of your way to buy an amiibo, just to make the game runnable in the first place. This system can also lead to you just waiting on Bowser to show back up, which especially soured my opinion of the game as I tried to redo the final fight for this video. But the only other issue I had with it is that 3D World uses a button on the face of the controller that you have to hold to run. And while that's par for the course for Mario games, it doesn't work when the game you're playing has a more open and 3D feel like Bowser's Fury does, and it makes traversal cumbersome at times. So, remember at the start of the video when I said I didn't like Risk of Rain 1? This is where it comes back around. Originally, I was going to skip out on its remake, Risk of Rain Returns, but I had friends playing it and I knew I never gave the original a proper chance, so I caved. I wouldn't say I'm in love with the game or anything, but I'm pleased to say I was wrong. Especially now that we got the mouse and keyboard update. My biggest issue with the game at the time of launch was not being able to shoot forwards while walking backwards. The recent patch changed this, and I love the game so much more for it. As an alternative to Risk of Rain 2, which I have to bring up with that being one of my favorite games, I can happily boot this up to play. While I don't enjoy its gameplay loop as much, it does win out on its unique characters. I'm not good enough to unlock characters on my own, so sorry that I can't talk about all of them. Handy is the first character I got where I started to enjoy the game a bit more. Rex was my initial favorite character in Risk of Rain 2, and a big part of that was him having built-in ways to heal. While Handy is completely different in terms of playstyle, I find myself drawn to him for the same reason. When my health gets low and things get dire, I can just send out a bunch of healing drones I've built up over the level. Artifice is another character I find to be really fun. Her primary attack feels far more satisfying to use here than it does in Risk of Rain 2, since it does juicy damage if you can space its max range well enough. And the most recent character I've unlocked, the Drifter, brings resource management elements into the game, which I love to pieces. Or should I say scraps? Seriously, I really hope this guy gets backported to Risk of Rain 2 when Secrets of the Storm comes out, and being able to toss out temporary items is really nice as well, especially when you're falling behind in the item game. One of the biggest issues with the Risk of Rain games is how punishing it can be to die sometimes. While dead, you can't pick up items, so the increasing difficulty outscales you. This can make multiplayer games exhausting, as you will occasionally become too outscaled to even damage enemies or bosses. Returns seeks to fix this by turning the player into a pilotable drone after they die. While in this form, your damage is too low to be worth using over your original character, but the ability to pick up items is huge for players that typically get outscaled by the difficulty. Seriously, if Risk of Rain 2 can only get one thing from Returns, give us the turrets. The quality of life here is really nice. Demon Crawl is probably not a game that deserves to be this high on the list. It's just a simple time killer that gives a Minesweeper some extra nuance and replayability, but the simplicity of it is why I feel the need to put it so high. As a game I could just open for 10 minutes at a time when I needed a distraction from schoolwork or whatever else I had going on, it's great. You don't need to set aside a block of time to play so you can progress. Just open it for 2 or 3 minutes, play a level, check the time. It's such a nice distraction, and for the period of time where I was actively playing it, I feel the need to put it this high. I just do. There's not much more that I can say about it. It's a Minesweeper roguelike. You get extra tools that can make the sweeping easier, in exchange for modifiers or field effects that make the mining deadlier. Short and sweet. Definitely grab it at some point if you feel like you need a distraction as well. And speaking of simple time killers, we have Ember Knights, but the fun of this one is the co-op emphasis it has. I wish I had more to say about it, but I'm barely at 10 hours and haven't even unlocked the weapon modifications yet. The most unique thing about this game, at least compared to other games I've played, is the perfect bonuses you get when charging your skills and certain attacks depending on class. In fact, my go-to build involves stacking buffs on perfects and damage or debuffs on refresh. And with this in mind, I usually run skills with low cooldown and or multiple charges. But you can totally do the opposite as well, with strong but limited skills. Actually, the way this game handles skills is also super cool to me. Getting different skills each run irrelevant of the main weapon you pick keeps each run feeling unique. I'm sure I'd have more to say if I'd gotten more hub unlocks, but unfortunately it's just a skill issue for now. I've never played a Resident Evil game before, but it's a series I've been meaning to look into for a while. That said, I'm really not sure how I feel about it. I think this is one of the games where I just didn't play it or interact with it in the way I needed to. I don't like to play games on hard difficulties the first go around. I'm trying to see if I like the game. I can always replay it if I want it to be challenging. And I wouldn't call this game easy. I died a lot while playing it, but I can't help but feel like something was missing. Did I feel like the game should have been harder? Did my JRPG brain just want a longer game? Am I being overly petty because I wanted to use the stealth weapon that fails to do damage or be stealthy? I don't know, but there was a part of me that couldn't help but question, that's it, when I finished. And don't get me wrong, the ending sequence with the jet ski was great, and there were components I was excited about, like Ashley wanted to go into Leon's Field of Wood, or seeing that one dude from Marvel. I guess I just wanted more out of the game than I got. I can't help but feel like there's something missing. Maybe there was and I just missed it. Maybe I just need to play separate ways. I should also mention that my PC doesn't run the game well. I don't think it ever affected my experience too hard, but there was that one time I opened a door and the ground didn't load. What?
How did that happen?
I do plan to replay the game at some point on a harder difficulty and interact with more of the side content sometime, and hopefully it can be a surprise honorable mention on a future list where I talk about how great it was and how stupid I am. But for now, I just don't feel strongly about it in any direction. I enjoyed my time with it, and I'm interested in playing more games to learn more about Leon or some of the other characters, but for right now, this is all I've got. The Persona series getting spin-off games in completely different genres is nothing new at this point, and I might even argue it's one of the things I like about it. And while Persona 5 Tactica didn't set itself up as a continuation of the world in the same way that Persona 5 Strikers did, all it had to do was be of the same quality again. But it had its work cut out for it. Strikers already managed the gargantuan feat of turning a cop into a likable character, so Tactica would really have to deliver if it wanted to stand up. And with its own Herculean feat of turning a politician into a likable character, I'd say it did it. The gameplay is really fun and just the right levels of exploitable. The characters remain very enjoyable forces within the story, with charming new inclusions to cap it all off. The art style is also fantastic, and seeing the various drawings of characters doing different things is wonderful. As for the new characters, Irina is immediately a favorite of mine, and her presence is felt throughout with how she bounces off of the other new character, Toshiro. And how you feel about the game will factor into how you feel about him a lot, as he's the focal point of the entire story. And while I found certain sections of the story to be formulaic or sloggy, it really starts to find its stride once you get to that area. And don't worry, one flashback and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. NOS levels skyrocket as you race towards the climax, and then you get that cutscene. God, the moment I saw the art style, I knew exactly what was going on. The climax of this game is just so good, and that's what comes next hurts so much. After you have what seems like it should have been the setting for the final confrontation with the true antagonists, the last hurrah, the game makes you go through an additional set of fights that feel tacked on just to increase playtime. A few battles with no narrative weight behind them, and then you refight a boss. A few battles with no narrative weight behind them, and then you refight a boss. This game would have absolutely been in my top 5 had it not been for this section of the story. But it just deflated the whole experience. I didn't even kill anyone by the time I got to the final boss, I just wanted it to be over. But the gameplay is still phenomenal, and that's all that matters for this kind of game. It just saddens me that 2 different games in this list faltered in the same way. Early 2023 marked the end of Xenoblade Chronicles 3's update cycle, culminating in the expansion story, Future Redeemed. And while I definitely enjoyed my time with it, I'll get there in a minute, it's not really an epilogue to Xenoblade 3 in the ways you'd think. With the return of past protagonists Shulk and Rex, as well as their children Nicole and Glimmer, it functions as more of an epilogue to the entire series. But it's hard for me to feel like it nailed what it set out to do, when someone who's been a Xenoblade fan since the first game and played every game thereafter, including X, needs to have the ending explained to them. I'm towing the line of no spoilers real hard right now, so we'll just leave it at that. If you know, you know. If you don't, go play it. And if you did but still don't, I recommend watching Xenobits' video here on it. It's what opened my eyes and allowed me to truly appreciate what had been done. So with that immovable Gonzalez out of the way, let's talk about what makes the game so good. And firstly, the characters. Matthew might legitimately be my favorite protagonist in the series, and the way he and A bounce off of each other is phenomenal. But if you follow my Twitter, you already know I love Matthew at least. I might actually love A even more though. A has legitimately turned me into a Shalvis shipper, it's insane.
You've hardly changed, to my eyes.
It feels like coming home.
I'm sorry, Fiora, my love. Nicole and Glimmer are both fine and have their unsettled growths and moments, but they're definitely the weakest part of this roster if I'm being honest. The return of Shulk and Rex is also great, and it's nice to see how they act as adults now. While I'd probably say I love Rex more in Xenoblade 2 than in here, he's still absolutely one of the best characters and a joy to have around. And then there's In. No, not that one. There, him. Future Redeemed did a lot for In's character. Not as much as Torna did for Mytho or Jin, but absolutely nothing to scoff at either. We get to see more into his mind and understand why he is the way he is, why he did the things he did. Riku's also here, because why wouldn't he be?
Riku, just Riku. Common variety Noppon.
My only real gripe on the character side is I think Linka and Panacea deserved better. They're both perfectly fine as characters, but considering they're present the entire journey, they at least should have been optional heroes. Even if they just went the future connector route and copy-pasted movesets onto them, it would make them feel so much more important. And being the children of Sharla and Pandoria, I can totally see them functioning as stand-ins for the Medic Gunner and Impulsor classes respectively. You honestly forget they're even there sometimes. Actually, making them heroes would fix the biggest issue with the DLC, being that the gameplay becomes unironically worse as a reward for finishing the game. I'm towing the line again, so let's just say chain attacks are less consistent and leave it at that. No cap, this caused me to lose to the final boss when I first fought him. Absolutely garbage game. At least I can mash. Okay, yeah, the game's pretty good. In one of the most anticipated releases of 2023, we saw the sequel to Breath of the Wild, and much like a player booting up the game for the first time, I have no idea where to start. There's just so much to do here. I guess I might as well rip the band-aid off. I'm not a big fan of open world and exploration. It's completely fine and I see the appeal, I just prefer having a set questline to follow. With that in mind, I'm perfectly happy with how this game handles it. There's multiple questlines that I can do in whatever order I wish. I don't need there to be a singular path, I just need a set path. But honestly, the main quest of this game didn't deliver in what I wanted. Small character moments as you work through each stage's conflict is fine, but we don't get anything actually driving us forward narratively. Just the same flashback that we've already seen. And while I wouldn't say the dungeons are the best they've been or what I'd want from a Zelda game, they were at least fun enough. Or at least the Lightning Temple was. Admittedly, I don't remember the others too much beyond the trek to get to them, as well as the boss fights, both of which managed to be super memorable each time. All's well that ends well. As for the shrines, they're fine, I guess. I'm personally the camp where I prefer more dungeons over the shrines, but I guess they're fine enough as they are, especially when I'm able to intentionally solve them incorrectly. Honestly, I think having too many ways to solve things can be a hindrance sometimes. Maybe that's just me? And speaking of hindrances, let's talk about the sage abilities. Conceptually, I love what they tried to do with the sages. Rolling up to bosses with a squad of homies is a massive feel-good, but I'd like to know whose bright idea it was to have their abilities be mapped to pressing A on their character models. You ever try to loot after a fight just for Riju to light up the sky, or Tulin to launch said loot to Kingdom Come? The inconvenience led to me almost never using the abilities, and that's a damn shame. Here's an idea. Instead of letting us open the map as part of the ability wheel, have that slot go to the sage abilities instead. With it selected, just tap the L button to pull up a sage wheel, where you can select the ability you want and immediately activate it. One of the biggest points of intrigue within this game is the depths. Scattered around Hyrule are these small chasms that you can dive down. On the other side, you'll find a second open world to explore, cleverly mirroring the world above. And if you want to explore down there, you'll need some light sources, because this place ain't doing you any favors. Hope you've been collecting Bright Bloom seeds. Another fun quality of the depths is the gloom scattered around. This stuff temporarily lowers your max HP when it touches you, so be careful where you step. Or who you fight, as enemies can also hit you with this effect. But the threat of the gloom is far outweighed by what you can find as you traverse. We'll leave it at that though, no need to ruin the surprise for anyone. The true magic of this game, however, comes from the Master Sword questline, and it's easily the high point of the game. Or at least the culmination of it is. I'm pretty indifferent to everything else. Man, this game's hard to talk about without spoilers, huh? But the moment you realize what's going on and what you have to do to get to the Master Sword, oh man, that's delectable. And with the Master Sword in hand and all the sages gathered, it's now time to confront Ganon. And there's only one place you can still be. So after you get there and go through the welcoming ceremony, you're graced with the Demon King's presence. And boy does he leave an impression by functioning as a mechanical mirror of yourself. Seriously, he can do everything you can. It honestly leaves me wishing Zelda had a bigger role in the game, to be honest. Well, I guess a more active role, considering her current role is
Link, you must find me.
I'm not gonna say the game would be better if she was more active, but I wish she could have been placed on the same level as Link and Ganon. She rules the Triforce too, damn it. Oh well, at least she lives with Link in a house that only has one bed. Do you think he lets her play with the Master Sword when he's exhausted from fighting? Another reason I find myself so mixed on the game is the combat, and while I'm a resolute defender of the durability system this game and Breath of the Wild both have, I'm not super fond of the combat itself. It honestly felt like I would exclusively beat enemies by stun-locking them or flurry rushing, and while those are both cool and fun in their own ways, the novelty just wears off after a while. I should probably stick to JRPGs. Speaking of which, I think Persona 3 FES is the most divided I've ever felt on a game. Despite being this high on the list, I actually have more negative things to say about it than positives. For starters, Tartarus slows the game to a halt. I can see the dungeon crawler appeal of it, but it gets stale so quickly. For as much as I love the gameplay, and we'll get there, being in Tartarus is the only time the game feels like a chore. I would start each moon cycle by going to Tartarus, and where I'd spend one session just getting from the end of Tartarus to the next moon cycle, the next session or two would just be spent on this place. One of the reasons I feel so divisive on the game is that it took me half a year to beat. And while being busy with life and other new releases made it hard to put time into the game, a lot of it was also just not wanting to turn the game on, because I knew more Tartarus grind was all that would await me if I did. And the game doesn't really have dungeons, so Tartarus is the only way you get to play the game. And again, I love the gameplay. Persona gameplay is one of its strongest attributes for me. But when I'm so sick of the gameplay because all I can do is climb this tower that I know I'll have to get to the end of eventually, and that I'll be underleveled if I don't do it now, it doesn't exactly lead to the most positive experience. And maybe this is just the repercussions of being a PS2 game, but I didn't find myself getting really attached to the characters or the story either. Maybe that's just a byproduct of the male characters not having social links and myself avoiding the female party members in fear of jealousy systems. Maybe it has to do with how often Tartarus killed the flow for me. I don't know. What I do know is this is the only time a game has actually broken my immersion with ludonarrative dissonance. To keep it simple, one of the main antagonists has a gun. And there's no strings attached, he uses it to severely damage people, even party members. But then, when you fight him, he's a total pushover. Within gameplay, his gun is about as threatening as the toy guns they have in Persona 5. And yes, those are toy guns. Well, model guns, technically, but the point is they're not real. I don't mind Jin having grenades because he never attacks anyone with them in the narrative, but when I'm concerned with the characters getting injured by a weapon that's a basic attack we can brush off in the combat, it just takes me out of the game. On that note, the boss fights are all horrible. I'm either over-leveled and steamrolled, or under-leveled can barely do anything. It hit the point where I was just abusing save states. Seriously, if I hadn't played the game on emulator, I might not have even finished it. Don't bother booting up Fest on native hardware. So if the gameplay loop is a slog, and the characters and story didn't leave much of an impact, what is it about this game that leaves me ranking it so high? It's the combat. Oh, the combat. Now, the immediate thing to get out of the way first is that this game has AI party members. I know you can do light modding to make them player controlled, but I decided I'd let it rock initially and switch it if I needed to. But honestly, AI is totally fine. You can influence them enough that they generally do what you want them to, and it becomes a funny haha moment when they don't. The reason I bring this up is that the final phase of the final boss has mechanics that punish you for having or not having the AI tactics set specific ways at specific moments. And mind you, you can't have the AI set correctly because you can only change them during your turn. So you had to guess when the attack was going to happen or your party got wiped worst case. The attack itself is fine, it just has no place in a game where you can't control the rest of the party manually. But this is supposed to be the positive section. What makes the gameplay so good? Well, aside from the base Persona combat, which is already super addicting, Persona 3 Fest has its own unique mechanics. One I really like is that you have to use your action to stand back up if you're down at the start of your turn. This, coupled with down characters standing back up when attacked, makes combat really engaging. I love the fact that I don't always want to cash in on an all-out attack. Sometimes I'd rather just stall out and make the enemies waste their action standing up, and I think that's really cool. I also appreciate there being 3 different categories of melee attack, with different enemies being strong or weak against different ones, although I do wish it was easier to tell which kind of melee a unit has. Maybe that's skill issue on my part though. The last thing I want to talk about is Shuffle Time. After every few battles, you'll play a minigame called Shuffle Time. You get shown a few cards before they get flipped upside down and shuffled, and you get the rewards of whichever card you chose. While notably this is the only way to obtain a new persona outside of the Velvet Room, you also have the chance to receive money, XP, healing, or new weapons. This legitimately might be one of my favorite mechanics in a game ever. Or at least it's on the list. I can't believe Lethal Company is this high on the list. I'm actually shocked. When I first played it, I was like, yeah, it's cheap, it's a fine time killer. Maybe we play it when we can't get enough people together through Secret Lab. But then I kept playing it because it was new. And sometimes, it feels like I have more fun each session. I don't even feel like I interact with it the right way. People talk about it being this funny game, and it is, don't get me wrong, but it feels like it's the game itself I appreciate. Trying to get a bunch of loot so you can go to more moons, buy more upgrades, and push for high quotas. Learning how to avoid monsters or access different areas. Learning to use different tools, like the jetpack or the extension ladder. It's the game side of it that I find myself interested in going back to, rather than the funny proximity chat shenanigans. I think something that puts this into perspective is the Ghost Girl. When I tell you that she has single-handedly made me interested in the horror genre when I never have been prior, I mean it. After my friend explained to me how she works while I was haunted, and she eventually showed back up, I lost my shit. And this one moment is when I truly fell in love with the game. I'm excited to see what new things get added into it over time, but it's already perfect as is. And the shenanigans within the game look still great as well, don't let me downplay that side of it. If it didn't lead to the great banter, I probably wouldn't stream it as much as I do. And while the price of the game shouldn't have an effect on its actual quality, the ability to tell people, this game's $10, you don't lose out on much if you don't enjoy it, makes the game beyond easy to sell friends on. I could honestly put this game higher on the list, even outright number 1 if I wanted to, but I worry the game's too recent. It hasn't proven itself to be more than a fad yet, and it's unfair because the only way to prove that is to survive the test of time, a test the game hasn't even had the opportunity to take yet. But for how much fun and appreciation I've had with the next 2 games, I worry that there's just too much recency bias for me to put this above number 3. And now, for a game no one would have expected to be this high on the list. Fire Emblem Engage. My story with this game is funny. I've played every Fire Emblem game since Path of Radiance to completion, and I consider it to be one of my favorite video game series, but Three Houses just felt lacking to me when I played it. So when Engage was announced, with a central mechanic of basically fan service, I was ready to skip out on it altogether. But then I noticed staffs were back, and I decided to open an eye to it. I don't remember at what point I decided to get it or why, but I do know I was resolved to get it by the time it released, even if I didn't get it day 1. And for all the problems and criticisms of the game, from the story to the tone and characters, whatever reasons you have to call this a bad game, you're valid. But damn it, the gameplay was fun. It reminded me that I do love Fire Emblem, when Three Houses had me questioning if I still cared. The weapon triangle is back. Staffs are back. I can't choose to mount and dismount my unit at will with 0 repercussions. Strategy mattered again. And while the engage mechanic can definitely lead to that feeling watered down at times, who needs strategy when I can have Ike face tank an entire army? Byleth give me 4 extra actions. Poland immobilize the current threat for a turn, or anyone else to just one-shot whoever stands in my way. They're broken, but they're limited enough that I value it as a resource. And all the emblem skills are balanced out by numerous enemies having multiple health bars. The only real change I'd maybe make would be to cap the amount of rings you can take into a battle at however many story rings you have, but that's really just to limit DLC. By the final act, I'm able to have more emblems equipped than the story has altogether. And dude, I know I complained about the fan service a minute ago, but they went hard with it. The characters having level up lines and death lines of the character they're engaged with is so fun to me. And don't forget the minor design adjustments to hair color and outfit they receive. It's also super cute that each emblem has a unique level referencing a part of the original game. Leaves can go die in a fire though. While I'm still not happy with the emblems being based on past games instead of letting the game be its own thing, they went hard enough with it that I find myself not caring when I sit down to play. And honestly, the story or characters never really offended me, which I was kind of led to expect by the reception. The only real gripe I have is I wish the story could have had a twist or two that was reasonable to expect without being overly obvious. I'll spare you any examples, but if you know what a Chekhov's gun is, then you'll be able to see the big plot twists coming from a mile away. Maybe not how they happen or what they result in, but it's all obvious enough. There's also a bad ending for the final level, and while it kind of felt out of nowhere, it manages to be more memorable to me than anything that happened in the actual story. Speaking of the final level, there was a big difficulty spike at the end. I managed to scrape by the level or 2 prior with high turn clears, but the last one forced me to shamelessly save scum, despite how many times you can use the time crystal. In fact, let's touch on that next. Shadows of Valentia was the first game to introduce the rewind mechanic, which is great quality of life, because now, instead of having to restart the entire level because bad RNG led to the fall of your favorite unit, you can just rewind time and do it over again. But when Three Houses and Engage later incorporated this, they decided to incorporate it into the story. And maybe that's fine to an extent, but it always plays a baffling role in the story. Byleth, the emotionless mercenary, the Ashen Demon, throws their body in front of a girl they just met, so that the player can unlock a new tool. You ever find yourself so down bad you break character to get some? Or worse, and I guess light spoilers for the end of Engage's first act, when Alira's time crystal just gets stolen by the antagonist, who then gets it stolen back 5 minutes later. Like, just have this be a gameplay mechanic. It doesn't have to play a role in the story. Or, just give us a one-turn undo button, I don't know. Otherwise, the only other thing I want to say is dear god the outfits. The game's hub world, the Somniel, gives you the ability to customize any of your units' attire, and you unlock new outfits as you progress certain things. And the feminine outfits you can choose from are dress, 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 etc. Like, come on, just give me something that's practical to actually run around in. And for all the complaints Alira's design gets, I actually don't mind the feminine design when her hair is tied. So why can I not spin my accessory slot to tie my hair? I'm stuck to the whims of whatever outfit I'm wearing. And while you have the Engage outfits to equip if you scam Amiibo, these are barely any better. The outfit can only be worn by a character of the same gender, which is especially upsetting for Korn and Byleth, who have male and female versions within their home game, or Erika, who has Ephraim as a separate emblem within her ring. I wouldn't think having gender-swapped versions of each emblem outfit would be that big of an ask, but here we are. And the DLC emblems don't even have outfits to give. You can really tell where the budget ran out. But for all that complaining aside, that's generally all nitpicks. None of it can take away how much fun I have playing the game. If you're a fan of the Fire Emblem games prior to Three Houses, and especially if you were also disenchanted by Three Houses, then I strongly recommend this game. It's fun. And if Three Houses was your first and only Fire Emblem game, then I still recommend it. Just don't expect it to be Three Houses 2. There will be changes you might not like, such as stark difference in tone or characters with less depth, and that's okay. Just stick with it and give it a chance. And as for the best game I played this year, it can only be Hi-Fi Rush. This game just hits different. In terms of leaving an impact, no other game on this list comes close. The characters are charming, the dialogue was constantly making me smile, and this is easily the game I can see myself wanting to revisit from this list the most. Please do yourself a favor and go play it. I wasn't expecting to resonate with the gameplay very much, since I'm not really a fan of Devil May Cry or the like, but the emphasis on rhythm made me think about what I'm doing more and time my attacks better. And if you're rhythmically challenged, then you can just mash through everything as well. Hell, I mashed through it at points, while simultaneously praising the rhythm aspects. Being able to chain dashes by timing them to the beat was initially just oh, that's neat, but then you get into a rhythm and it just feels so good. And if I wasn't already in love with the game by the end of it, the ending sequence is absolutely perfect. I seriously couldn't have asked for anything more. I'm still working on doing the post-game stuff, so I can't comment on anything good, but accessing secret areas and early levels with party members you didn't already have also helps to keep things fresh. If I go on any longer, I'm just going to be gushing more and more, but seriously, play this game. Please. So that's my video. How'd I do? What does your list look like? I'd love to know what you played this year that I need to catch up on. This year was huge for gaming, and I know there's plenty I need to play when I get a chance. More broadly, how is the format of this video? Should I separate it into multiple videos next time so I can talk about 2024 stuff together? Should I make it a countdown leading up to the new year with one game each day? Let me know. I'd love to hear your feedback, and be sure to like and share the video around if you enjoyed. It means a lot. Special thanks to Metron, Fred Zero, and Neon for proofreading the script and making sure I'm not a dum-dum. And thank you to you for listening to me ramble for another video. It's greatly appreciated. Here's to 2024 and a new year of gaming. Ciao!